Do we have a working clicker?
No, I don't need it.
Let me check. 1 second.
No, I don't want.
You ready?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eva, and I'm the Executive Director of the Python Software Foundation. The PSF, which is Python Software Foundation for short, is the nonprofit organization behind Python. I'm very excited to be in PyCon Belarus this year. This is my first time in Belarus, and even though it's a short 3-day trip for me, I'm really loving it so far. So the PSF has supported PyCon Belarus since its first edition, so I'm thrilled to finally be here in person to experience it. So I live in Chicago, which is about 7,700 kilometers away from here, which is kind of far, but it's just as cold as it is here. So let's think warmer thoughts. Think about a wonderful vacation place. What makes it a worthwhile experience? It could be the food, the weather, or the people. Imagine that Python is that beautiful vacation spot. What would make Destination Python a place you want to go to? Obviously, all the great qualities that Python has. It's easy to learn, easy to read, it's object-oriented, has awesome libraries, and so on and so on. But today, I want us to concentrate on the aspect of community. Sorry, that was one behind. So what makes a community? It's the things people have in common. You might live in the same place, like the same books, studied the same subjects, or have used the same programming language like us. Our commonality is Python, regardless of whether we use it for work, for personal projects, or even in education. Taking a quick look at Python's history, we see it's been gaining traction since the early 90s. It gained popularity because Python was so accessible compared to other programming languages during that time. This handful of people back in 1994 that you see up in these pictures did not know what Python would become today. But they did do several things right to help our community grow. The most important thing they did was foster the community, even if it was small and limited at that time. They started mailing lists, they held workshops, and they eventually put on conferences. They created online and in-person spaces where people with this common interest could get together, hence creating our community. So let's fast forward 29 years. What is our community today in comparison to what it was back then? It's global. Over the last 29 years, our community realized more and more that it could only benefit from diversity. And diversity means including underrepresented groups. It means being accessible and inclusive to all, regardless of their age, gender, ethnicity, financial status, background, or even the time zone they live in. It can be whatever is preventing them from fully participating in our community. Back in 2016, when I gave my first keynote at PyGotham in New York City, I spoke about the PSF's involvement in making Python more accessible and our community more diverse through our grants program. Over the last 3 years, the PSF's grants program has continued to grow and have impact. Some of you might be thinking, what is the PSF and what does it exactly do? I could easily make this entire talk talking about the PSF, but I'll just highlight a few of our important projects. After this talk, feel free to come talk to me, or if you have any questions about the PSF and its involvement in the Python ecosystem. So the PSF runs PyCon. We spend 6+ months out of the year working on PyCon, which this year will be in Cleveland, May 1st through 9th. I hope to see some of you there. For those of you that cannot make it this year, next year it will be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from April 15th to 23rd. PyCon is the largest Python conference and also the largest source of revenue for our nonprofit, so the success of it is vital. It's also the longest PyCon, totaling 9 days. We had 2 full days of tutorials, 3 conference days, and 4 sprint days. Every year, we attempt to provide a remarkable experience for our community by providing low-cost registration, daycare, financial assistance, and providing many networking opportunities and a variety of skilled leveled content. Additionally, we make sure that all of the content is publicly available within hours, so those of you that can't attend can still access all of our tutorials and talks online. The revenue that comes from PyCon and additional sponsors and donors is used to fund Python events all over the world, such as PyCon Belarus, through our grants program. So for this year, our goal is to continue to fund all these great Python events and also to increase the amount of funding we provide towards Python developments, its libraries, and projects. In 2018, $324,000 was paid in grants to recipients in 51 different countries. We awarded almost $60,000 more in grants in 2018 than the year before that. That's 22.6% increase for global community support in just 1 year. This graph shows us that the majority of fund goes to North America, Europe, and Africa. 3 years ago when I did my keynote at PyGotham, Africa was just a small sliver on this graph. Now Africa receives the same funds as Europe or even the US. It's great to witness our community growing. Within the PSF, we have several work groups that work on a variety of community efforts. Our grants work group evaluates 98% of all of our requests that the PSF receives, while a few of the larger grants are evaluated by the board. The grants work group works 7 days a week reviewing and voting grants. That work group has representatives from Nigeria, Ghana, South America, the US, UK, South Korea, India, and Ireland, as we see on this map, marked in blue. What you can also see is that we don't yet have anyone from Eastern Europe on our grants work group. If anyone in the audience is interested in getting involved with the grants work group or any of the other PSF work groups, let's chat after my talk. So the PSF houses and maintains several pieces of infrastructure that is important to our community. Python.org not only holds PSF information and community information, it also is the second most popular place Pythonistas go to download Python from. According to the most recent Python developer survey conducted by the PSF and JetBrains, Python.org is used by 33% of the survey respondents. Which, by the way, if you haven't had a chance to check out the recent survey results, at the bottom of this slide, there's a bit.ly link for the 2018 survey results. We'll conduct the survey again in October of this year, so be sure to keep an eye on it for Twitter or the mailing lists. So PyPI is a repository of various software developed and shared by our community. This is another piece of infrastructure our team is responsible for. Last year, thanks to Mozilla's support, our team released a new codebase for it, which was very much needed because PyPI is used by millions. Some fun facts about PyPI. According to one of the maintainers, Donald Stuft, PyPI serves approximately 310 million HTTP requests via pip install daily. For the last 30 days, PyPI served 2.3 billion file downloads, which used 3.3 petabytes of bandwidth. It costs approximately $2 million a year to run PyPI. The PSF is very lucky to receive these donations these donations from organizations such as Fastly and AWS. We're also very lucky to have such great volunteers that help maintain it. So the PSF also houses several Python projects. This means that we handle the administrative and accounting work for these groups. Since they align with the PSF's mission, they get absorbed into our nonprofit status. This comes with many benefits for the projects and also to those donating to the projects. Currently, we're home to PyLadies, the Palettes team, which works on projects such as Flask and Jinja, and several Python regional conferences such as PyCascades. Over the last few years, the PSF started to support core developers by providing financial support for their annual sprint. We will continue to provide this support going forward, and hopefully much more. Python recently voted in a new governance model, which now lives in PEP 13. On February 4th, just a few weeks ago, the steering council members were voted in. The first 5 people to serve on the council are Carol Willing, Brett Cannon, Guido Van Rossum, Barry Warsaw, and Nick Coughlin. The committee's job is to lead the development of Python and our community. The PSF's goal is to increase the amount of support we provide core development, and we look forward to working with the new steering council members to make our community even better. So now that everyone is a little bit more familiar with the PSF's operations, let's get back to the topic of community. So why is the community aspect of Python important? Why can't we just deal with the bug reports and the PRs and the future direction of the language and call it a day? So the main reason is the sustainability of Python. Sustainability is attained by nurturing all of the people in Python's ecosystem. After all, if everyone stops using Python, what will be the point? We have to foster and nurture all types of users and contributors, and that includes newcomers, beginners, intermediate users, and experts. It takes all of these types to keep Python going, and everyone's engagement plays an important role. Now, when I say everyone, who does that include? Throughout my research for this talk, I read VM Brasseur's book titled Forge Your Future in Open Source, with open source, I apologize. It uses the onion model to represent roles within open source projects such as Python. In general, VM's book is really great for anyone thinking about contributing to Python or any open source in general. So I highly recommend you check it out. We see the outer layer represents users and the middle layers represent contributors. As we get closer to the center of the onion, the skill levels of the contributors increase until you get to leadership, which for Python is the steering committee. No layer is most important, and one layer is not more important than the other. They're all equally important. These layers benefit from one another, and they also help pave the life cycle of a Python programmer. Within each layer, we also see different skill levels. Users can be beginners, intermediates, or experts. Contributors can be beginners, intermediate, or experts, and so on and so on. Sustainability is keeping all of these layers healthy and growing. Sustainability is making sure that our documentation is clear. It's making sure that our community is friendly to all skill levels. Sustainability is supporting Python's package distributions infrastructure. Sustainability is helping our community members avoid burnout. Sustainability is ensuring that users have a clear path to becoming contributors if that's what they want. We haven't yet figured out ways around aging nor preventing burnout. Developers will one day retire. Who will replace them? Contributors will one day need to step away from their Python commitments when life gets busy. A lot of these people feel guilty because there's no one to take over their work and there's so many people that depend on it. In a lot of cases, it's usually just a single maintainer that deals with a lot of the stress. If we don't foster the growth and stability within our community, how will we fill these roles? Another aspect of sustainability is the importance of corporate support. The PSF works with companies that benefit from Python being open source and free to use. In turn, these companies support the community by donating and sponsoring, similarly to how companies support conferences. This type of support needs to be set as an example for all organizations that benefit from Python. If organizations support our community, it will only benefit them in the long run because it will make Python that much better. So this brings me to the second reason why community is important. And it's because Python is used and written by people. People are complex. Some will even say that people are more complex than code. We all come from different backgrounds, cultures. We all have opinions and feelings. At the same time, we want to make Python available and accessible to all. So how do we do that knowing that people are complex and there isn't always an easy way forward? We do this by creating a welcoming and diverse community. One of the ways we achieve this success is by creating code of conducts for online and in-person spaces. Using PyCon in the US as an example, we try to establish a code of conduct that is meant to improve the safety, welcoming nature, and overall inclusivity of the conference. In 2018, the code of conduct for PyCon was reevaluated, and we decided to rewrite some of the parts. Our procedures for reporting and responding to incidents were improved, and our on-site methods were improved. Based on the initial responses, feedback, and incidents reported that year, we feel like we've made some progress on those goals. We understand that this type of community support deserves constant assessment and evaluation, especially as our community continues to grow. We hope this can become an example for many PyCons around the world and our community as a whole. Another way we can work on creating a welcoming and diverse community is by addressing biases. We are all biased in some form, and it is somewhat intuitive for us. It is part of our evolution in the way that we were taught to be protective of ourselves. Bias is disproportionate weight in favor of or against a thing, a person, a group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. There are several ways we can be biased without even knowing it sometimes. We can be biased when we think we're helping someone, but then do not realize that all we're really doing is the opposite. We can be biased when we're surrounding ourselves with people who think the same way as we do. We can also fall into groupthink traps. When biases are not addressed, we could enforce negative, impacting feedback loops, which can prevent our community from growing. Beyond how we act, biases touch the work we do through the algorithms we write and the data we give them, which I think Alejandro will be talking about more later today. In order to not allow biases to interfere with our decisions and interactions, we have to be aware of them. Be self-aware. Question what you hear and read, especially on the internet, and have an open mind. I would say that so far community standards are pretty high. One of our core developers and steering council members, Brett Cannon, said it best: "Come for the language and stay for the community." As you see in this tweet, the quote became so meaningful that PyCon Pune in India decided to incorporate it into their conference shirt. But that doesn't mean we're done just because this phrase has become meaningful. We can't stop nurturing our community. We have to uphold our community standards and make sure that Python continues to be a welcoming environment where programmers want to stick around. We have to create a destination that people want to go to. Otherwise, just like a vacation place, it'll cease to exist. So what do we do now? How can you all help? If you're a beginner, don't be afraid to ask questions. And if you get stuck, let someone know. If you see that material for newcomers is lacking, tell us. That way, we'll know that it needs to be better for future newcomers. On the flip side, if you see documentation or a tutorial that works for you, also tell us. We need to highlight those bright spots and duplicate what works. Don't feel that your input doesn't matter just because you're new. You may not be an expert at Python yet, but your input is still valuable. Python is used in everything from microcontrollers to YouTube and a million things in between. If you have experience in any of these areas and want to learn Python, then you have a place in the Python community. Thomas S. Kuhn wrote a book called The Structure of Science Revolutions. In this book, he analyzes where technological breakthroughs come from. He finds that very often, breakthroughs happen when someone who isn't an expert in that field contributes to it. Newcomers and beginners are so important because they help us diversify our community and our thinking. Consider a web designer, someone who understands topography, data visualization, language design, and so on. Now consider someone that we may call an expert Python programmer. They may know everything there is to know about a specific set of kernel APIs or the Python descriptor protocol. That doesn't mean that they can design a reasonably user-friendly interface. We need designers and user experience people too. Those skill sets are complementary and needed to create the full picture. For those of you that have been around for a while, find a newcomer that needs support. Find someone that doesn't act like you, learn like you, or maybe even look like you. Foster their involvement with Python and our community. Introduce them to people at your user group. Help them when they're stuck or when they're lacking to find things that stir their curiosity. Support them when others won't. Have empathy towards others. And when it gets difficult, think back to when you were first starting out. Empower those around you and help them find their spotlight. We constantly have to encourage newcomers. We have to engage them, and most importantly, we have to retain them. Help keep Python's community growing, because that is the only way we'll be able to introduce new ideas and keep moving Python into the future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. We are really social creatures, and social things are important to create a good code, good community, and good ecosystem. Okay, please, questions, and you can ask in Russian. I will translate. Please, anyone? Okay, we have a first question here.
Dear Eva, thank you for the great presentation. My name is Alexander. I have a question regarding the representation of women in Python. Do you have any good examples of programs or projects that were implemented in other countries that would encourage more women to join the Python community? If you look at the audience, you see that the percentage of women is not this much, it's not this big in our room today.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
It's a great question. We're good? That's, there's no one answer for this, and there's plenty of things that we all can do. A few things that I've seen that work well in our community are Django Girl workshops and PyLadies workshops. In certain areas, those have really, really taken off and not just brought women into our industry, but also a lot of newcomers. So I've seen that work, and I'm sure, it helps that all the curriculum is available online, so a lot of people can just kind of pick it up and copy and paste it into their environment.
Thank you. More questions, please. We have like 2 more questions available. And 3, and 2, and 1. And one more round of applause, please. Thank you a lot.
There's one question over there.